Well, speaking of court sessions, we may get a decision as early as today that could be a huge setback for Obamacare. An appeals court looking at a lawsuit seeking to throw out subsidies for residents in many states relying on the federal government to run their health care exchanges. You might have heard of this story. This is due to the wording inside the health care law that subsidies are only for insurance purchased through an exchange established by the state. As you know, many of the exchanges have now been established by the federal government. Let's bring in Joe Trippi, former Howard Dean campaign manager, and Ed Rollins, former national campaign director for Reagan Bush 84. Both are Fox News contributors. So we've heard a lot about these challenges, gentlemen. Ed, you say this one could be the mortal blow to Obamacare. Why?
Well, I think anything that distracts Obamacare at this state is going to have devastating effect. This plan is not working. They're not signing up the people they need. This is one, if you don't get your subsidies, obviously there's a lot of people who won't be able to afford Obamacare. And I think to a certain extent, the law was very clear. 36 states chose not to participate in the subsidy because they didn't think it was a good drill. And now for the IRS to try and force the change one more time, Obama's trying to basically govern by laws that aren't written by the Congress.
Joe, do you feel the same way, that once the subsidies would be taken away, if they indeed are, and we don't know what the ruling is yet, could that be the straw that breaks the camel's back, if you will, as far as support for the law?
Well, no, I mean, certainly if that happened, it would be another bad notch in terms of people, feeling that the thing was failing. But I don't think that's what's going to happen here. They lost this case in lower court. This is about the intent of Congress, the one in 2010, not the current Congress. And the people who wrote the bill then say that this was their intent, that that they meant for everybody who was eligible for subsidies to receive them, and that it was just two separate sections of the bill where they didn't get the wording right. The courts have ruled that way. Certainly there is, because of the makeup of the panel in the U.S. District Appeals Court in the District of Columbia, the makeup of the panel might get a ruling that does exactly what Ed has talked about, throw it out. So, but it'll be appealed again to the full district court.
Right.
And the Democrats have a majority on that court, so I don't think it's going to happen.
So then we have there would be a few more weeks or perhaps months to wait for a final answer on it. Joe, let me just stick with you quickly here, though. Even as we've seen these challenges over the last several years to the law, when does the process of the challenge overshadow the policy? You say the policy is still good, Obamacare is still good, but when do all these challenges sort of add up and chip away at the way that the public feels about the law?
Well, they're doing that now. I mean, they have chipped away. I mean, favorability of Obamacare obviously was never high, but it's gone down, and it's certainly affected the president's numbers, and it will be one of the issues that Republicans use with some success potentially in November of 2014. That's already happening. I think 10 years from now, everybody may love Obamacare like they do Social Security and Medicare, but that won't matter in the near term.
Well, interesting. You mentioned 2014. We've been talking a little bit about 2016 as well, because we had some news that we broke in our show during the 11 o'clock hour, and that's about the Republican National Committee picking Cleveland to host the 2016 National Convention. And a couple different points that Reince previous brought up, and we'll get to some of those because I like both of your thoughts on this, but here's why he says this committee chose Cleveland, Ohio.
As goes Ohio, so goes the presidential race. And so, it's just something we've committed to as a national committee. We've got a full-time field staff there now in Ohio. We've got full-time offices now from the national committee in Ohio. This was something that historically, unfortunately, our party's only been involved with during the last 5 months of a campaign. I think it's been terrible for our party. We've changed things at the RNC.
Ed, what do you think about that choice?
I think it's a bad choice. I would have gone to Dallas. I have a fond place in my heart for Dallas. That's where Ronald Reagan was nominated. He went on to win 49 states after that convention. The problem with Cleveland, nothing's wrong. He's right about Ohio, but we haven't won Ohio in a long time. And equally as important, Cleveland is the heart of Democrat in Ohio. It's a heavily union city. It's the overwhelming margin you have to make up everywhere else. There might have been other places in Ohio that would have been better. We had the same argument could have been made about we need Florida. We went to Tampa last time and didn't basically win Florida. As a matter of fact, we've gone to 5 or 6 places, New York, Philadelphia, other places, with this sort of long ball strategy. We're going to win these states by being there. I'd rather go to the place that rewards us most, Dallas, which is a solid Republican town, a state that's the biggest Republican state in the country, and reward the people that are basically supporting us repeatedly.
Joe, I'm curious what you think about what Ed says. There certainly were a lot of different opinions about where to hold the conventions, and some point to Dallas for the precise reasons that Ed mentions, which is that it's already a Republican city, a Republican state, and that's why you shouldn't go there. What do you think is the right strategy? What do you think about Reince Priebus saying, yeah, you know what, we screwed up. The Democrats were on the ground in Ohio longer than we were last time around, and we're going to learn from that.
Well, the Republicans got beat badly in the ground game last time, and in particular in places like Ohio. Look, the Republicans lost Ohio by, I think, 2.4 points in 2012. So I think, look, I understand where Ed's coming from, but as a strategist from the other side, you know, they've got to pick up places like Ohio, and they got to make inroads into places like Cleveland if they're going to have a chance of picking up that state and getting to 270 electoral votes. They already have the electoral votes in Texas. Those are going to happen anyway, and they aren't going to happen. It's going to be a 49-state landslide the other way for Hillary Clinton or someone else. So I actually, you know, look, when I heard these were the two last cities, I thought it made a lot more sense to go to Cleveland, although I do completely understand what Ed's saying, because in the past, both parties have tried to go to places they haven't won and try to, you know, make up a couple points by showing their stuff in a swing state, and it hasn't worked out for them. But if you're going to gamble, this is the right way to go.
Including North Carolina last time for you guys, who basically
yes, that's
went
right.
there.
Interesting
you probably
point.
lost North Carolina because you were in that convention, and the people there got to see you up close and personal.
That's interesting. The proximity does not make the heart grow fonder.
It's the one part of a campaign you don't get to control.
That's true.
Everything else you get to control with media and what have you.
There's
always a danger to it, and I just always want to go a place that's safe, because I don't think at the end of the day conventions matter anymore.
Well, fair point. A fair point, and a big question about whether they do. And it's interesting to see they're going to do the conventions much earlier this time around, June or July rather than August. I mean, you do have Johnny Manziel in Cleveland. That's a little bit of Texas there. Does that count for something?
By then, they might be tired of him.
That's true.
He'll have the second drunk driving arrest, and he'll basically have dating 45 starlets.
The one thing Ed and I can't agree on is that the conventions don't matter that much anymore, where they are or what's happening.
It's a heck of a lot of money, though, to spend on something that doesn't matter anymore, especially considering the times that we're in. But I'd love to have you both back to talk more about that, especially since we'll all be watching the conventions with bated breaths. If they don't matter, I think we might reconsider. All right, Ed and Joe, great to see you as always. Thank you.
Good to be with you.